Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a very special installment of Scaling Legends Season 2.
We are super excited to get into this one.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you're tuning in for the first time, or, if you've been listening to us since the very beginning, you know the core mission of this show. We take a massive stack of source material.
Right. The articles, obscure industry profiles,
financial analyses, personal interviews, all of it. And we distill all of that into a conversation that gives you the most powerful, actionable insights possible.
And today is a big one.
It really is. Today, our mission is to unpack the incredible multi-generational story of Ebony Jennings. She is a third-generation asphalt contractor operating out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And right out of the gate, we need to set the table for you. This is not going to be your standard dry business case study.
Yeah, no spreadsheets today.
Exactly. We're not just going to sit here and read off profit margins and talk about market share acquisition. This is a masterclass in human resilience. It's about navigating systemic friction and really the brutal realities of heavy industry.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you have ever sat at your desk just staring at a spreadsheet and felt this deep gnawing sensation that you were in the completely wrong career, this story is for you.
Oh man, that feeling.
Right. Or if you are currently in the trenches trying to build something physical and meaningful against ridiculous odds, you are going to want to take notes.
Get a pen ready?
Seriously. But to truly understand the gravity of what Ebony Jennings built in the 2020s, we cannot start in the present day. We have to rewind the tape.
We have to go back to the literal and figurative foundation. The story begins with her grandfather, John Lee Jennings. He founded the original iteration of Jennings Asphalt and Construction way back in 1984.
1984?
Yeah. Now, to understand the Milwaukee construction scene in the mid-'80s, you have to picture a highly fragmented, highly competitive blue-collar landscape. According to the historical records we pulled, John Lee was an absolute grinder. He built his business primarily around seal coating.
Let's pause there for a second because we have listeners from all different backgrounds. When we talk about seal coating versus full-blown asphalt paving, what is the actual difference in scope there?
That's a great point to clarify.
Because it seems like an important distinction for where the company started versus where it eventually ended up.
It is a crucial distinction. Seal coating is essentially preventative surface maintenance. You are applying a liquid emulsion over existing asphalt to protect it from water, UV rays, oil damage, things like that.
So it's more surface level.
Right. It requires equipment, sure. You need sprayers, squeegees, and holding tanks. But the capital expenditure, the CapEx, is relatively manageable. Paving, on the other hand, is foundational construction.
The heavy stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are tearing up earth, laying aggregate base, and using massive multi-ton pavers and steamrollers to lay down hot mix asphalt at 300 degrees. It is infinitely more complex and expensive.
That heat alone is intense.
It's brutal. But John Lee built his bread and butter on the seal coating side. Driveways, small commercial parking lots, the everyday vital maintenance of the city.
But he didn't just stay in the driveways. The sources highlight this one massive, crowning achievement that defined his career. He participated in the paving of Milwaukee's iconic Hohen Bridge.
Yes, the Hohen Bridge.
For those who aren't familiar with Milwaukee architecture, the Hohen Bridge is this massive, stunning tide arch bridge that spans the Milwaukee River inlet. It is the visual centerpiece of the city's infrastructure.
What's fascinating here is the cultural capital of a project like that. In the heavy civil construction world, participating in a legacy project like a major municipal bridge changes your standing entirely.
You're part of the city.
Your name is literally cemented into the physical infrastructure of your city. It's a point of immense pride.
And you can feel that pride in the sensory details from the interviews we reviewed. Ebony describes her childhood in Milwaukee so vividly.
Such a great image.
It really is. She was this young girl playing outside, and she could hear the specific rumble of her grandfather's truck coming down the street long before she saw it.
The sound of the diesel engine.
Exactly. She talks about the massive seal tank strapped to the back of the rig, the incredibly distinct, heavy smell of the asphalt materials in the summer heat.
Anyone in construction knows that smell.
Oh, yeah. She would drop whatever she was doing and chase that truck down the street. It's this deeply cinematic, visceral childhood memory. Her grandfather was a superhero in a hard hat.
But the narrative hits a wall. In 1996, John Lee passes away.
Which is just devastating.
It is.
And this is where the story usually ends for small, family-run trades. Because nobody in the immediate family was in a position to step up and take the reins of an incredibly demanding, physically exhausting business. The company essentially died with him.
So everything just stopped.
Yeah, the trucks were sold, the seal tanks, the tools, the yard, everything was liquidated. The business went totally stagnant. Jennings Asphalt vanished from the Milwaukee registry and existed only as a memory.
Which is a heartbreaking, yet statistically common reality. Family businesses often fail to survive the first generation, not because the market dries up, but because the founder is the irreplaceable operational engine.
A linchpin.
Right. Without a rigid succession plan, the institutional knowledge and the client relationships evaporate the second that founder is gone.
But the legacy didn't stay buried. Over the next hour, we are going to walk you through the chronological timeline of how Ebony Jennings resurrected this dormant company decades later.
And it is quite a ride.
It's wild. And we aren't just going to give you the highlight reel. We're going to dig into the actual mechanics of the hurdles she faced, from family pushback to severe capital crunches and systemic isolation.
Because the strategies she used to overcome these bottlenecks aren't just applicable to pouring tar. They are a blueprint for navigating friction in any sector.
So let's jump forward in the timeline. It is 2011. It has been 15 years since John Lee passed away. Ebony is an adult, and she finally musters the courage to tell her family that she wants to revive Jennings Asphalt and Construction. She makes the pitch.
She makes the pitch. And the immediate response she gets from her own uncle is a flat-out rejection. He tells her, and I quote, "Asphalt is too hard. It's not for women."
Man. If we connect this to the bigger picture of entrepreneurial psychology, that moment is absolutely devastating.
Soul-crushing.
Think about it. When you start a business, you expect the market to punch you in the face. You expect banks to say no. You expect competitors to try and undercut you. You build mental armor for external threats. But when the resistance comes from inside your own house, from a family member who loves you and is ostensibly trying to protect you,
it completely bypasses your armor.
Precisely. Because they aren't trying to ruin your life. They genuinely believe they are saving you from a humiliating failure. That well-intentioned discouragement is infinitely heavier than the criticism of a stranger.
And we have to look at the context of the construction industry in 2011 to understand why her uncle might have said that. He wasn't just pulling this out of thin air. He was reflecting a deeply entrenched systemic reality about gender roles in heavy civil work. Yes, the industry pipeline for women, even when they do manage to break into the construction world, is heavily skewed. The systemic logic has historically been, fine, you can work in construction, but you belong in the trailer or the home office.
Right, keep off the dirt.
Exactly. Women are aggressively guided toward roles like project manager, estimator, or accounts receivable. The physical execution of the work, the grading, the paving, the heavy machinery operation is culturally gatekept.
But I love how Ebony views this. She completely rejects that premise. We found this quote where she directly challenges that norm, and it is so powerful. She said, "Women in construction are not just limited to being a project manager. There are women out here who are better truck drivers than men, better paver and roller operators."
Such a great quote.
She isn't just asking for a seat at the boardroom table. She is demanding the keys to a multi-ton steamroller.
It's a vital distinction. She is advocating for women at the point of physical execution. But back in 2011, without capital and without family support, the sheer weight of that systemic stereotyping and her uncle's discouragement was too much.
It was. She folded. She took that entrepreneurial fire, packed it into a box, shoved it in the attic of her mind, and took the safe route.
Which so many people do.
Yeah. For nearly a decade, she worked a desk job in finance at Northwestern Mutual. I want you, the listener, to really imagine that for a second. Think about a time you were pushed into a specific role or a specific major in college because of someone else's assumptions about what was best or safest for you.
It's suffocating.
Now stretch that feeling out over 10 years. 10 years of sitting in a cubicle dealing with institutional finance while knowing deep down that your actual calling is out on the road building physical infrastructure.
The psychological toll of that is profound.
Yeah.
You are expending an enormous amount of daily energy, not just executing your finance job, but constantly suppressing your core identity. But the interesting thing about suppressing a calling like that is that it creates pressure. And eventually you just need a catalyst to blow the valve.
And the universe delivered one hell of a catalyst. We arrive at the year 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic sweeps across the globe. Supply chains freeze, the economy shutters, and Ebony loses her stable, safe finance job at Northwestern Mutual.
The irony there.
Right. The very job she took to avoid the risks of entrepreneurship is suddenly ripped away from her.
This raises an important question, though. From a purely logical standpoint, the middle of a global economic shutdown is objectively the worst possible time to start a highly capital-intensive, material-dependent, heavy construction business, right?
Oh, absolutely. Any rational financial advisor would tell you to hoard your cash and wait it out. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because Ebony didn't react with logic. She reacted to a profound spiritual and emotional shift.
The dream.
Yes. During this incredibly stressful period of unemployment, she has this deeply vivid, transformative dream.
The imagery in the source material regarding this dream is striking.
It really is. She dreams that her grandfather, John Lee, is walking through a dark tunnel. He is holding a burning torch in his hand. He walks directly up to her, looks her in the eye, and physically passes the torch into her hands.
We have to analyze the significance of this. Beyond the beautiful mystical element of it, this is a textbook manifestation of a suppressed subconscious finally taking the wheel.
Yeah.
When the daily noise of our lives, the commute, the office politics, the illusion of safety is suddenly stripped away, the things we've been ignoring get very loud. Ebony herself said it perfectly in an interview. She noted, "Something always was in me to start this business. And once the pandemic happened, that was my shot."
The destruction of her safety net was actually the universe giving her permission to finally pursue the legacy. She didn't have the excuse of a safe salary anymore.
Exactly. The risk profile inverted. Staying stagnant became riskier to her soul than starting the business.
And she didn't just wake up, write the dream in a journal, and go back to sleep. She took immediate, aggressive action. Exactly 2 months after that dream, in early 2021, Jennings' Asphalt Contracting and Construction was officially incorporated and reborn.
Which is an incredible moment of triumph, but it immediately introduces a massive practical bottleneck.
Right, because you can have all the passion in the world, you can have the spiritual mandate from your ancestors, but a dream does not teach you how to calibrate the screw on a highway paver.
Exactly. She is coming from a decade at a finance desk. She doesn't know the first thing about the chemical properties of hot mix asphalt, how to grade a subbase so water drains properly, or how to operate the machinery.
It's an entirely different language.
The knowledge gap is an absolute chasm. How did she possibly bridge that?
This might be my favorite part of the entire deep dive because it shows her sheer hustle. She essentially enrolled herself in YouTube University. Late at night, she would stay awake for hours watching instructional videos produced by a company called American Pavement. She studied their content obsessively, trying to absorb the intricate trade secrets of road construction.
Which is great, but
she didn't stop at passive consumption. She executed one of the most audacious cold calls I have ever come across.
the boldness of this cannot be overstated.
She picks up the phone and she cold calls American Pavement directly. A woman who goes by Bill's wife answers the phone, listens to this incredibly passionate pitch from a woman in Milwaukee trying to restart her grandfather's company, and passes the message along.
He actually calls back.
Bill, the actual guy from the instructional videos, calls her back. In a single life-changing phone call, he pours an enormous amount of practical industry knowledge, operational advice, and encouragement into her.
That moment is a masterclass in audacity. People vastly underestimate how willing true experts are to share their knowledge if you just have the courage to ask them respectfully. True masters of a craft usually love talking about their craft. But this cold call also unlocked a broader theme in her journey, the power of the mentor chain. Ebony's success is not a solo act. It started with a generational transfer, John Lee passing the torch. Then you have Bill providing the technical jumpstart. But there is a third, incredibly vital link in this chain. A woman named Karen Eaton.
Yes, Karen Eaton, the owner of Eaton's Asphalt service.
Karen takes Ebony under her wing in a very hands-on, localized way in Wisconsin. But the historical tie here is what makes it so resonant. Karen's father and Ebony's grandfather, John Lee, actually used to work together in the Milwaukee paving scene decades ago.
That is just wild, the odds of that.
It really is. You have these two patriarchs who literally paved the way in the 1980s. And now, a generation later, their daughters and granddaughters are uniting to keep that legacy alive. Karen provided the real-world, localized mentorship that YouTube couldn't offer.
Which is invaluable.
It prompts a great question for you, the listener. What does your own mentor chain look like? Who passed the torch to the person who passed it to you? And are you willing to make that terrifying cold call to find the mentor who could change your trajectory?
That's a great question to reflect on. But let's get back to the gritty reality of business. Because even with the passion, the YouTube tutorials, and a great mentor, you still need cold, hard cash to buy asphalt and machinery.
You can't pave with passion.
Exactly. And this brings us to the next massive hurdle. Ebony has to fight for capital. She puts together her business plan, and she starts knocking on the doors of traditional banks to secure funding, and they reject her completely.
Which is fascinating and deeply frustrating when you consider her background.
Right. I mean, she spent the last 10 years working in institutional finance at Northwestern Mutual. She knows exactly how to format a balance sheet. She understands risk modeling. She speaks the exact language of the loan officers sitting across the desk from her. So why are they slamming the door in her face?
Well, we have to look at this from the rigid perspective of traditional commercial banking. While it feels like a systemic flaw, and in many ways it is, from the bank's perspective, they are looking at a mathematical risk profile.
The algorithm.
Exactly. Heavy civil construction is exceptionally capital intensive. An asphalt paver, a skid steer, a commercial dump truck, these are massive depreciating assets. When a bank looks at a first-time founder with zero historical commercial contracting revenue operating in a high-risk physical industry, their algorithms just flash red.
It's so backwards sometimes.
The irony is that traditional finance is often perfectly willing to throw millions of dollars at a tech startup with zero revenue because the overhead is just server space and laptops.
Okay.
But a foundational community-building infrastructure business deemed too risky.
That disparity is maddening. But she doesn't take no for an answer. She pivots her strategy and looks toward community-focused lending. The breakthrough finally comes when the Greater Milwaukee Foundation steps in.
A huge turning point.
They review her business plan, they look at the legacy of John Lee, they see her actual financial acumen, and they grant her the Thrive On Small Business Loan.
That capital injection was the singular lever that moved the entire business forward.
It unlocked everything. With the Thrive On loan, she was finally able to secure a physical headquarters, moving the operation to 5310 West State Street in Milwaukee. She was able to put 2 actual employees on payroll, and most importantly, she could finally purchase her own heavy machinery.
Which fundamentally changes the unit economics of a construction business.
It has to, right?
Oh, massively. When you were renting a skid steer or a roller by the day, your margins are getting absolutely chewed up by rental houses. The second you own the iron, your overhead stabilizes and you can actually start bidding on jobs competitively.
Speaking of building a business from scratch, if scheduling crews and chasing payments is eating your time, Smart Business Automator handles that so you can focus on the work. Check them out at smartbusinessautomator.com.
Very true.
But back to Ebony. She has the machines, she has the headquarters on State Street, she has the crew, she is officially a player in the game. But the universe is not done testing her, because we have to fast forward just a little bit to 2022.
Sophomore year.
And we really need to lower the energy here because this is a severe low point. She is exactly 1 year into operating Jennings Asphalt. And suddenly, the music stops. The paving jobs just completely dry up.
This is what we call the sophomore slump of entrepreneurship. And in the construction industry, it is particularly lethal.
Ebony was incredibly candid in our sources about this period. She described it with brutal honesty, saying she was losing money, it was going down the drain, and it creates this terrifying cascading effect.
Right, because of the way cash flow works in this industry. Let's elevate this and look at the actual mechanics of why construction businesses fail in year 2. It usually isn't because they do bad work. It's because of cash flow sequencing. When jobs dry up, you still have fixed costs. Insurance on the heavy machinery, lease payments on the State Street headquarters, and more importantly, you have to pay your laborers weekly. But your clients, especially if you are doing commercial or municipal work, might be operating on net 60 or net 90 payment terms.
Oh, wow.
Meaning you do the work today and you don't see a dime for 3 months. If the pipeline of new jobs stalls out, the cash buffer evaporates instantly.
And the human cost of that is immediate. Because there's no revenue coming in, she can't guarantee hours. So the skilled laborers and crew members she worked so hard to hire start slipping away to find steady paychecks with larger competitors. She's sitting there, just 1 year after that beautiful, affirming dream about her grandfather, genuinely fearing that she was going to lose absolutely everything.
This is the ultimate crucible for a founder, when the romantic vision of the business collides with the brutal reality of a $0 bank balance. How do you survive?
Well, let's talk about her turnaround because it is brilliant. She didn't rely on luck.
No, she relied on what I would call radical operational humility. Typically, when founders face this kind of existential threat, their egos inflate as a defense mechanism. They blame the market, they blame the clients, they blame the weather. They double down on the very strategies that are failing them. Ebony did the exact opposite.
She checked her ego at the door.
She did. She realized that sitting in the truck or the office looking at spreadsheets wasn't giving her the full picture. She became hyper-receptive to her crew's input.
The guys doing the actual work.
Yes, the operators running the paver, the guys shoveling the hot mix. They're the ones who see the microscopic inefficiencies. They know if a specific route to the asphalt plant is wasting fuel, or if the mix is cooling too fast because of a logistical bottleneck. By actually listening to the laborers, she restructured her operations. She tightened up her estimating accuracies so she wasn't underbidding jobs just to win them. She optimized her material costs.
It's an incredible lesson in leadership. She survived by trusting the people whose boots were actually on the ground.
This raises an important question, though. How many businesses go under simply because the founder refuses to admit that their frontline workers might know more about the daily operations than they do? Her humility saved John Lee's legacy.
So she stabilizes the business, tightens her operations, and starts to grow again. But as she expands and starts walking onto larger, more complex job sites, she runs headfirst into a completely different kind of challenge. The intense, pervasive reality of isolation.
The demographic reality of this industry cannot be ignored.
It really can't. She's stated this fact plainly in her interviews, and it is a statistic that just stops you in your tracks. She said, "I'm the only Black woman in the state of Wisconsin that owns this asphalt company."
We really need to pause and contextualize that for the listener. The entire state of Wisconsin.
The whole state.
She, alongside her mentor, Karen Eaton, represent this incredibly small, resilient micro-sisterhood. They're the only two Black women operating asphalt companies in the state. Think about the psychological armor required to walk into a massive, multi-million-dollar county pre-bid meeting, a room historically dominated by a very specific demographic and deeply ingrained cultural norms, and be the absolute anomaly. Every single day, she has to navigate being the only one in the room.
And part of navigating that unique position involves engaging with systemic programs designed to level the playing field. This brings up a really fascinating, nuanced conversation she had during her appearance on the ConExpo podcast. Because she is a woman-owned DBE, which stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, she qualifies for certain municipal, county, and state initiatives.
This is a complex topic, and it's vital to look at it impartially, exactly as she described it. The mechanics of the DBE program are inherently designed with a positive, corrective goal. Historically, municipal infrastructure contracts were awarded through deeply entrenched networks.
The good old boy networks.
Precisely. Marginalized groups, minority owners, and women were effectively locked out of the bidding process because they didn't have the generational relationships with city planners. The DBE program mandates that a certain percentage of government contracts must utilize certified disadvantaged businesses.
Right, it opens the door to the bidding room.
It does. However, Ebony was remarkably candid about the fact that operating as a DBE is a massive double-edged sword. Yes, it gets you a seat at the table, but the friction it creates is immense. There is often quiet resentment from legacy competitors who feel the bidding process is being artificially skewed, but more insidiously, it creates an immediate, unfair assumption about her company's competence.
Right. She talked about this. There is this unspoken bias on the job site where a general contractor might look at her crew and assume, oh, they're only here to fulfill a diversity quota, rather than recognizing the objective reality. They won the contract because they are excellent at grading and paving roads.
Exactly. It forces a dynamic where she cannot just be good at her job. She constantly has to overperform. Her margins of error are scrutinized far more harshly than a legacy competitor. She has to prove every single day that she belongs in the room that the DBE program helped her enter.
It sounds incredibly exhausting, but this is where her background and her forward-thinking mindset really shine. As we move into the final chapters of this deep dive, the way she is managing that visibility and that friction is just brilliant. She isn't hiding from it. She is leaning into it. She has taken this gritty, old-school 1984 boots-on-the-ground trade, and she has injected it with a completely modern approach. She proudly embraces the title of a trade influencer in the road construction space.
Which, from a strategic business perspective, is brilliant. The heavy construction industry at large is facing a massive existential crisis regarding skilled labor. The older generation is retiring, and the traditional methods of recruiting young people into the trades are completely failing.
And she knows exactly how to solve that. Her strategy is crystal clear. She noted, the only way that companies are going to get their message across in the digital age is to utilize digital tools. So she is out there on social media pulling back the curtain. She is showing the reality of the work, the sheer power of the heavy machinery, the technical skill required to lay a perfect mat of asphalt, and the tangible pride of physically building the infrastructure of your city.
By documenting her journey, she is demystifying the industry for an entire demographic that never even considered construction as a viable career path.
And the emotional payoff of this strategy is just staggering. Because of her visibility as a trade influencer, women from all over the country are finding her online. They are sliding into her DMs, messaging her in social media groups and telling her, "You inspire me so much, I didn't know I could do this until I saw you doing it."
That is the true evolution of the legacy. The torch wasn't just passed from John Lee to Ebony so she could hold it and keep her own business warm. She is actively using that torch to light the way for thousands of other women across the country. She has transformed a local family legacy into a national beacon.
And the broader industry is finally starting to recognize her massive impact. If you look at her recent trajectory, the accolades are piling up. She was named a finalist for Outstanding Women in Construction in 2024 by Construction Business Owner magazine. She has been featured on WUWM 89.7 FM in Milwaukee, sharing her story with the broader public. And in a true full-circle moment for industry validation, she was selected to sit on a ConExpo customer panel.
For listeners outside the heavy equipment sector, it's hard to overstate what a big deal that is. ConExpo is essentially the Super Bowl, the World Cup, and the Olympics of the construction industry combined. It happens every 3 years in Las Vegas, and it is the absolute epicenter of the global heavy machinery world.
And it gets even better. Because of her rising profile, she is officially slated to attend ConExpo for the very first time in March of 2026. For her to walk into that massive environment, not just as a wide-eyed attendee, but as a recognized voice, a panelist, and a leading trade influencer, is a monumental milestone for Jennings Asphalt.
It's an incredible full-circle moment.
It really is. So what does this all mean? We have traced this incredible journey from a little girl chasing a rumbling seal tank truck down a Milwaukee street in the 1980s, to a woman feeling trapped and unfulfilled in a sterile finance cubicle, to a resilient founder surviving a near collapse in 2022 by listening to her crew, all the way to becoming a national trade influencer. I want you, the listener, to take a second and visualize something.
Yeah, picture this.
Imagine John Lee Jennings, her grandfather, standing on the pedestrian walkway of the Hohen Bridge today. The very bridge he helped pave with his own two hands. Imagine him looking down at the sprawling city of Milwaukee and seeing his granddaughter. Not just seeing her running the company he started, but seeing her completely revolutionize it. Seeing her overcome the banks, the industry biases, and the near bankruptcy. Seeing her inspire an entire generation of women to ignore the people who tell them to stay behind a desk, and instead to confidently pick up the keys to the paver and the steamroller. What do you think he would say?
I think he would be overwhelmed with an immense quiet pride. He would see that the foundation he laid wasn't just made of asphalt, it was made of resilience. And it leaves all of us with a deeply personal, provocative thought to mull over. We all have a legacy, a dormant calling, or a torch waiting for us in some dark tunnel of our subconscious. We spend so much time making excuses about why we aren't ready for it. But the story of Ebony Jennings asks us one simple question. When that moment finally comes, and the torch is offered to you, will you have the courage to take it?
That is an incredibly powerful note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the extraordinary life, business, and legacy of Ebony Jennings. Keep building, keep pushing through the friction, and we will see you on the next episode of Scaling Legends.